had the correct answer for that question because I'm still trying to figure my ass out. But I am Kellee Stewart. I am born and raised in the Philadelphia area, then New York, and now out here. I'm an actress, I'm a writer, I'm a producer, and I am an egg advocate, meaning proactive fertility health for women and men, people with sperm. You're welcome. But that's what I do.
Which one? Now, there's a lot of titles there. Which one, I guess, which was one of the talents that kind of came first, maybe during childhood or something that you found that spark?
Actress was first. The first time I remember I wanted to be an actor, my mother took me to go see the Broadway show Cats. I
Mm.
think I was like 7 years old. We played hooky from kindergarten, first grade, or whatever it was. And she did something that no parent ever should do, which is to put your child on the aisle seat. Like, why do that? There must have been somebody in front of me where
Oh,
I
I
couldn't
could
see. Oh,
see.
sorry.
No,
Did
that's
that
fine.
just happen?
No.
Okay, my bad. People texting. Um, where
No.
where you couldn't maybe somebody was in front of me that I couldn't see. But anyway, the cats come out in the audience at one point. They
Mm-hmm.
come to the and they do their dance and
Yeah.
everything. And my little 7-year-old ass got up and ran to the stage with them.
Wow.
And so she had to run after me. And I was like, I want to do what they do. And she's like, not today. We're getting kicked out the theater. But um, so after that, she put me in, in little programs in the summer. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, for kids, and I went to the Consortium of the Arts. Then I went to Freedom Theater, which is an African American theater company in the heart of Philadelphia,
Nice.
and that Walter Dallas started. God rest his soul. And we just, from that point on, I was doing the thing.
Mm.
Nice. And then
Yeah.
from acting, like what did that bring you as a child and like growing up? Like were there any hurdles you had to jump? Obviously, but like what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, there was my mother wanted me to be a child first, so she was never about the you're just going to act and do your thing and
Mhm.
and and go to school, some other time. Like, it wasn't about that. But she
Okay.
wanted me to be able to have the skill set because she really believed in honing what your child is interested in, what they have skills in, but making sure that they have a childhood first. And she's like, this can wait. If
Okay.
you want to do it professionally, it can wait. And she kept her promise because she let me know, at a certain age, I could go out for my first role as a background actor in a movie, and
Mm.
she would have to be on set, and she would keep her promise along the way. I there was a show called Star Search. Do y'all remember Star
Oh
Search?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And we aging ourselves now. So
Yeah.
Star Search, I remember that I auditioned for Star Search to sing. I'm not challenged, I'm
Yeah.
kind of challenged in the vocal area. But so I didn't make it. But I think the reason my mother drove me there and waited all those hours was just for me to really get a taste
Yeah.
of
Okay. Of the
what the
Experience.
industry
process.
was like, and like, is this girl really into this, or is this just a fad? But no, I cried, and then I got over it, and I was like, what's next? And she was like,
Mm.
school. And I
Oh.
was like, oh, okay. So then after I graduated high school, we knew, and I went to SUNY Purchase, which is a state
Oh,
university in New
okay.
York,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah, for acting, and I got my BFA there. And then I moved to New York City after I graduated from the acting program with honors. Just
Mm. Nice.
and
Nice.
then
Give you some
okay,
clap. I'm gonna give you some
I got
claps.
Just
the
to add that.
I got the President's Award. Okay, but so then I went to New York. I was waiting tables. I hated it.
Mm.
And I was like, what can I do to really learn more about the business? I was also modeling at the time, doing some commercial print. I was the Skittles girl for a minute or two,
Mm.
on the buses in New York City. And I was handing in my voucher at my modeling agency, FFT, hold
Mhm.
for
That's where we
hold for
met.
up right. That's what I was like. I was about to say hold for applause because it's about to get good. So I handed in my voucher for FFT, and my booker was quitting. And I was like, so when she goes out the door, guess who's going to come in and start booking so I can book my friends, myself,
Mm.
and, really figure out how the business works. So they had an argument. She bounced, and I was like, looks like y'all need a booker. Pay me for my Skittles job, but I'm here now. And then I became head of the adult division, actually, and represented you.
Yes, you
And
did.
represented
That's
you
so funny.
And you know what else is crazy? I don't know if you remember Nico Anand.
Nico, yes.
So Nico is my god brother. So he's my mother's godson.
Oh.
And we also went to purchase together. So we're family. So when I got the job and I needed somebody to come, assist at the time and then become a booker, I called my god brother. So he was there because, I was like, we can book everybody that we know. We got no money. We trying to pay rent in Brooklyn. We got mice underneath our bed. Like, let's
Oh
get
my
it
God.
popping. So we booked
That's
Aisha
great.
Hines. She plays Hen on 911. She was our good friend. So we booked
Mm.
her. Rochelle Aites, another actress. Plenty of people that you see. But Nico plays Uncle Clifford on Stars' P Valley, the new hit show
I
on
gotta check that
Stars.
out. No, I gotta check
Oh,
this out. I haven't seen it forever.
your bookers.
You
So,
both
so,
and you
so
both left.
we both left. Yeah, we
Yeah,
bounced. We
you had
bounced.
to
I
do
went
you had to
first
do
and
your
Nico
thing.
came after. But if you guys check out P Valley on Stars, Katori Hall created it. I'm acting like I'm on the show. But
I know.
Nico, Katori, if you hear this, Katori, Cuddy, I want to be a stripper too. But Nico came out like, let me tell you, he got all the rave reviews, the most fascinating character on television. You got to watch it. So
Nice.
that's
Awesome.
all.
What was that like being an agent and you had nothing? You didn't have like any schooling with agent. Like what was that? They would just like come on in. Like what was that experience like?
I had to learn from the ground up, you know what I
Of
mean?
course.
But I'm a very determined individual. My
Hmm.
goal was always to not stay there. My
Mhm.
Yeah.
goal was to learn what I needed to learn to get out of there. About casting is about not taking things personally. You know what I mean? Like if they're looking for a green shoe and you come in with a red shoe, it's not that your red shoe isn't great. It's just that they're looking for green. However, what I learned being an agent is you got to make your red so fantastic, so fire, so
Mhm.
bomb, so the right choice that you change their mind. And what they
Mhm.
thought they wanted in green, they now have to have in red. And
Mhm.
so, what I really
Okay.
learned is that the people that walked in with confidence, that knew who they were, that made choices about themselves and how they presented themselves, and were really, I mean, it's kind of cliche to say this, but just be yourself,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
were really just being themselves and were really comfortable in their skin. Those were the models that I always wanted to represent. And it really wasn't about how tall you are, how, what you look like. It was more about like what you do, just
Mhm.
Hmm.
like being exactly who you are in your skin. You know what I mean? So it
I would
worked
That's
have.
great
out.
I
It
would
worked
advice.
out.
imagine that that
Yes.
helped you as well in your craft and what you was learning because you almost in a sense you saw yourself in them. And I was like,
Yeah. Yeah, I did. And there are a lot of people that are professional auditioners,
mm,
Yeah.
is what I'll call it, meaning they get real comfortable in the zone of auditioning and feeling like they gotta get a job. I'm begging for a job. Oh, I really hope this is the one. What
Hmm.
most artists don't realize is that you wear that like a coat that comes into the room before you, that you want it so bad.
Mm.
And you got to know that this is a craft, this is an art. Put all that other stuff outside of the door, because desperation is never something that's going to be hired, ever. Do it for the love of it. When I came out here and started acting, I became real close to Niecy Nash. We're like sisters. And I was having a bad year one year out here, and it was just like, wasn't booking anything. Everything that I got close to, they would turn around and be like, actually, it's not you, it's Kerry Washington. I'm like, her
mm.
again. It was all of that.
Yeah.
And then and it really got me down. And I was crying on the phone with Niecy one day, and I was just like, you don't know what it's like. And it's so hard out here.
Mm,
And you got 18 jobs. And she was like, first of all, but are you having any fun?
mm,
That's the
I went,
good.
oh. And she was like, right. Are you having fun? Because if it's causing you this type of pain, why are you doing it? I
mm,
don't want to hire that. And she was
Mm.
like, take all of that mess and all of that crying because nobody cares and get to work. And I
mm.
was like, oh, have fun. Do it for the love of it. Get that artist out of me. So, and those are things that I remember seeing as an agent too, that the people that were too desperate, it wasn't attractive, just be an artist.
How did you start now peeling those layers that like society and every and being in that world put on you, and where you forgot at one point, this is what I love. It was this pure innocence of passion and chasing down and want to be with the cats and stuff like that. How did you now getting this reminder and this gift again from Nisi to like, okay, what was your steps now to like get to the source again and peel these layers off?
Well, I had to ask myself, why was I really so unhappy? And because art reflects life, right? So if I'm thinking that a job is going to make me happy, I'm having the wrong thought, because, the happiness comes from within. So what was it that wasn't fulfilling me? And for me, it was the fact that I didn't feel like I was expressing myself artistically accurately. I was always getting cast as the Black best friend. So when I did get the jobs, I was the trope character on an all white cast, several of them, whether y'all saw them or not. I did several pilots that never got picked up, but I was always in that role. And I started to realize that, these are the characters that are most underwritten. These are the characters that you never see their home life. You never see where they live. It's the trope that's been there forever. And so when you ask me a question about how did I peel back the layers, I asked myself, like, well, what do you want to do? So I began to write. And I actually wrote a pilot called Black Best Friend, where I flipped the trope. And at the time, I was on a show called The Soul Man with Nisi and with Cedric the Entertainer. And Cedric got the script and he was like, yo, I want to produce this with you. And I was like, yo, that's all I needed to hear.
You don't gotta tell me twice.
You gotta tell me twice. So now all of a sudden I have Cedric the Entertainer, Sebastian Jones, my amazing co-writer that taught me so much, who actually was a writer on a show where I did play the Black best friend. But he was one of the only writers that wrote me storylines. And that's why I called him and was like, you kept me going on that show because you always gave me something to do. And but myself, Cedric, Jeff Melnick, and Sebastian Jones, we pitched it. We sold it to Fox. We sold it to 20th. And though they didn't shoot the pilot, that's when I knew, oh, there's more to me. And now I know what fulfills me is creating from my gut, creating from my experiences, my joy and my pain. And now I'm not as desperate, quote unquote, going in the room as an actor because I have all these other skills that have just percolated to the surface. But now to your question, I've peeled the layers back.
Yeah, because it's like you took your power back from this world and this society and this industry that you're in, and you started giving yourself more worth. You started greenlighting your own stuff. You started recognizing who and what you are and these gifts that you have and going after it. And maybe you don't know certain things, but you're gonna call people that may know the answers. And also with this spirit that I'm listening to you got this go-getter attitude that you're like, well, I'm not gonna settle for less. I'm gonna go after it. And I think through that process, and you hear it time and time again, we hear it from my colleagues, you and on this podcast, that the moment you start creating your own projects, what you want to do, the voice, that's to me is the doors open, and it's more powerful than anything that these other people are going to write, because this is your story and it's coming from a true source and a place. So congrats to that. I think that was amazing that you actually took the time to give yourself that chance to write that.
Thank you. And I agree with you. I appreciate your words. I receive them and I take them in and I say thank you because, I think it's great for everybody to really know that you can just tap into your greatest self, whatever that is. And whatever scares you the most, but gives you the most excitement, do it. That's a clue. That's a calling to your purpose. Even when y'all asked me who I was and I said, actor, writer, producer, and egg advocate. I froze my eggs when I was 37 years old to preserve my fertility after a relationship ended. And when I went to freeze those eggs, I never thought that I would be speaking about it publicly. It was nobody's business what was going on in my vagina and my ovaries. It was just mine. But it became my purpose when I found out how little I really knew about my reproductive system, and that other women that look like me, that are brown like me, are not really in that conversation. And so I wound up writing a film because now I know from having gone out with BBF, like, oh, this is what I can do. So I wound up writing a film called 29 Eggs, tentatively called 29 Eggs, which is the amount of eggs that I froze. But I sold that to a major network, and we're in development to shoot this spring and this summer,
Nice.
so of 2021.
Ah,
Yeah, thank
congrats. That's
you.
Yay.
awesome.
That's great
But
to
it's really
hear.
about taking your for me,
Taking
how
your
I
story.
create, taking your story and putting it out there and telling your truth. And though everybody doesn't know my name, and
Yeah.
I may not be the Issa Rae or the this or that, it doesn't matter. What matters is I'm doing something that fulfills me, that brings me
Mhm.
joy. And the paychecks that are coming from me sitting down and putting in the sweat equity and putting in the work as an artist.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And there's, if I'm just blessed to be able to do that and to have found myself through that process. I feel blessed.
I'm glad that you mentioned the whole egg thing because that's the next question I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
So writing this film and you don't I mean freezing your eggs, you started this whole like huge women's fertility and support on Instagram, and now like you have your own, let's say, podcast show called Warrior Wednesdays. So tell us, how did you start that and how did that come about and how it grew? Because it's,
Well, go ahead. What were you saying?
I said it's so beautiful because for me, before I got married, I was thinking of going into in vitro. I didn't know about freezing eggs. So when I looked into
And
sperm
you wrote that
donors,
film 29 Vitros, I think.
so
Your film and my film gonna go back to back.
when I looked into sperm donors, I was like, I just saw 20,000 and change. I just saw the amount of money and I was like, that's a down payment to a house. Like it freaked me out. I was like, oh my God, this is so expensive. Like I didn't know so many things that you had to do. And I was going through this journey because I really wanted to have a child. And I was willing to have this child on my own. But, things happened and I ended up getting married to my spiritual brother.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
And, now we have a daughter. But
Amen.
so it's so beautiful. I've seen some of your Instagram lives, and it's just beautiful to hear the stories and things that women don't even know or not aware of when they go to the doctors, and how the hospitals treat you, and even family, like when you're gonna have a child, when you're old, when you're already approaching your 40s, and all this. So anyway, enough about me. But like, what was that like for you, and what made you start that whole
Support group.
support group?
Oh, well, thank you for bringing that up and asking that. Basically, I was in development for the movie and then COVID hit. And so everything in development pauses, and we don't quite know when we're going to be back in the world. Like here we are almost a year later. And so I was in the midst of just sitting on the couch on lockdown. And I remember going on Instagram and I saw Woman Crush Wednesday. And all of my crushes of women are women that are in a fertility journey. And
Mm.
so it just hit me that I was just like, yeah, that's cute and all, but I need to do something on Wednesdays that honors the women that are like me and like you, in the sense that you were going to go through it and do it even on your own. There's so many of us. There's more of us than the traditional sense, but it's not normalized. So, kind of on a whim, I just started doing Warrior Wednesdays, calling a couple people that I know in the fertility world
Mhm.
um, to be on. And then before I knew it, it was really taking some shape, and a place that a lot of women, especially in my DM, they would come to every single Wednesday as a means of getting information. We have Dr. Cindy M. Duke, who is MD, PhD, FACOG, virologist. I mean, she
Oh,
is like, she's the head of the Nevada Fertility Institute, and she's our warrior doctor.
okay.
So her and I became friends, and I was like, will you do this with me? Will you come like once a month, answer questions for women? So they are getting a education from like one of the top fertility specialists in the country. And then different women that talk about all kinds of women's health, whether it's fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS. We just had Miss Danielle Brooks, who you might know from Orange is the New Black, and she's playing Mahalia Jackson. That's coming up in March, and Tony nominated. She just told her story of having an emergency C-section on Warrior Wednesdays. And so all of these women are showing so much support to each other. I just did an interview with the New York Times about it. So it's really becoming a thing where people really know, women and men really know that they can come and be transparent. If you watch the show, we cry, we laugh, we tell the truth. And we throw support up. And my whole goal is that people, when they watch it, they leave there better and more informed than when they started. So every week, sometimes I take, like, tomorrow's inauguration day, so I'm taking off. But every Wednesday, then I'm back the following Wednesday. And now I'm like booked months in advance. So
nice,
that's wonderful. Look where you started.
Well, it goes back to, like, once again, it's so great to hear all these things flourish, because all these things are coming from a source of being honest, truthful, and going through the pain and figuring things out. Like, it was never surrounded about fame, money. Maybe the beginning is like, I just want to book a job so I can pay these things right. But the moment, like, I think you just went to your core and you started, like, really working yourself and going after things, like, all these things just start forming around something as simple as, like, your journey with the eggs, and little by little just putting it out there and look like where it took you and where it's taking you and what's more to come.
Yeah, I really think it's about for me, what I learned in 2020 throughout this process is my calling finally met my art. And, as we grow in our art and we learn more about what we're capable of, we then hopefully are also equally finding where our calling is, what our purpose is, what are we depositing into the world, And so with the egg freezing, I didn't know we were born with as many eggs as we're ever going to have. How you talk about, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we still hear you.
It's fine.
Okay. My AirPods went out, y'all.
It's fine. We still hear you.
Hold a second. Okay. How you talked about the $20,000, like, right? Like, being really expensive. Yeah. One of the things that I always tell women, and the reason that when I say my calling matched my art with this movie and Warrior Wednesdays, is that we need to normalize things. The same way that we go to baby showers every year, 10, 15 baby showers, right? And bridal showers and all this stuff. Well, baby showers are for women and men that are pregnant, that are about to have a baby. But what happens to the woman like me that froze her eggs but is still waiting for the right relationship, or the woman that is on her third round of IVF with her partner or by herself, or whatever it might be, or the woman that's miscarried 3 times and is still trying? Do we not get celebrated? Do we not deserve the support and the love of we got it? So I always tell people with ovaries and people with sperm, because there's a lot of great people with sperm out there that adopt, kids, that get egg donors. But I always say, throw yourself an egg shower. Like, throw an egg shower.
I remember reading that and I was like, that is such a great idea.
Right. And just register at paypal.com. And people always say, well, who's going to come to that? Like, and I'm like, people that love you, the same people that you would be calling for the baby shower, they'll get it. And if they don't get it, guess what? They may not really, get you. Yeah. But if you want to be a parent, whether it's adoption, fostering, throw yourself a shower, get the support that you need to be able to mother, to parent, to father in this world. Like, we have to normalize all of the different ways people create families today.
Yeah. That's
I wanted to ask you, how difficult was it? Because as an artist myself, when I created, like, one-man plays that it was based on my life, there was always it was difficult to write a lot of things and face a lot of things, but it was also very healing. Now there's another aspect of now putting it out there. What was that? Was that challenging for you to put it out there in the sense of, like, wow, like, I don't like people in my business, but now they're going to know my business because it's more than me in a sense where, yeah, this is my story, but now I'm combining the art with it. And now after I put it out there, is in a sense is like no longer mine's, because now everyone is attached to it. So here's this thing that I was in that room with, it is my baby, and now everybody is like adopting it. So what was that process for you to, I guess, find that courage and that being comfortable in the uncomfortable to like, yo, this is me, this is my story, say what you want?
That is such a dope question, because I think you are constantly evolving into being quote unquote comfortable, but I don't know if you really ever want to be fully comfortable, because I think the thing that keeps you alive and having to be honest is the challenge of discomfort. If it's easy, and if bearing your soul is easy to other people, then it almost feels like the journey, you've already decided the end.
Right.
The thing about putting something out there, especially in the beginning phases of it, like this is the story that I want to tell, is you don't know what shape it's really going to take and what impact it's going to have on the world. You just need to stay focused on the integrity and the truth of it. And so, and you're right, when other people come on board, because look, this is a business, people got to make money, right? So now it's your intellectual property until it's not. Like when I sold BBF, you know, I grew up in an all white neighborhood. So I was, you know, called nigger for the first time by my neighbor across the street. Like, I'm just going to keep it funky. And if he's listening, I remember. So
tag him on Instagram.
That part, right. And it was my ex-boyfriend's father. That was the first one. But, you know, so it was hard to put some of that stuff out in the world, because I knew like my if this gets made, the people in my neighborhood are going to be looking at me funny. And, you know, I had to get past that point where I'm like, and then, yes, other people are now going to have something to say, because it's a business and they have to fit it into a certain platform, into a certain audience. Like we don't want to scare the white people too much, and we don't want to do this too much, you know. And so you got to know what battles to fight and which ones not to. And you got to know how to say no. I didn't just take a sale because somebody said, we want to buy it.
Yeah,
that's right.
But we want to change it to a multicam and da-da-da. Oh no, that's not the platform that I want. That's not the show that I wrote. I had to learn how to say no. And to, again, like I said before, not be desperate. Like, where is it going to keep my integrity intact so I can tell my story? But there's always the risk. It should never be all the way comfortable. I think whenever people start to say like they're going to cancel a show or end a show, like that's a successful show, and they're like, this is going to be the last season, I'm always thinking, I wonder if they're now comfortable and they feel like, number one, before the audience, you know, before we have nowhere else to go, you know what I mean, and nothing else to tell, let's skip on out of here. But also I always wonder about, what else do they want to say that they can't say in this show?
Right.
You know what I mean? So when you get comfortable as an artist, that's kind of not where you want to be.
No. Yeah.
It needs to challenge you. I remember, since we were talking about Niecy real quick, I remember when she did the show Getting On, where she played Nurse Dee Dee.
Oh, yeah.
And Niecy, you know, she'd be wearing all the different wigs and the lashes and the makeup and the bop, and she's always popping with a corset on and all the things. And they told her, take all of that off. Take all that makeup off. It's not happening here. Take all those underpinnings off. You're not wearing a waist trainer. She was like, excuse you? Like it was uncomfortable for her. But that's where her Emmy nominations came, and then came again. And then you see her, you know, in When They See Us, Netflix, stripped down, you know what I mean? And so I think we get the most out of our art when we're uncomfortable, and we just got to live it, whatever that is.
And in our true vulnerabilities, you know?
Yes. And being a producer, putting your work out, to your point, it's the most vulnerable thing I've ever done. I don't like, you know, you are going to hear a whole lot of opinions all the time.
Yeah.
And you do have to absorb them. And there's times where you have to know this is not what I'm saying, or
if I get the same note over and over and over again, then I need to look in the mirror and say, I am not being clear, or maybe this really does need to change. It's one or the other. So you always have an opportunity to grow, and you're going to be challenged, and you should be. You should be.
The one thing that I always like kind of like struggle with in that sense was when they try to change things to make it more a universal appeal or something like that, and I'm just like, but that didn't happen that way. You know, like this actually happened. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, and this is more truthful than how it's going to be switched to this other way. You know, and I agree with you where knowing when to say no, or you know, to respectfully disagree and not go for it, because at the end of the day, you know, you don't want something that's not going to sit well with your spirit, where you feel like it doesn't feel right, or it didn't come out in a sense, in a way that how you envision it, you know, and all this time that you committed to, you know. But it's like you said, learn to pick your battles, because also a lot of not a lot of times, but there's a majority of times too that depending where these notes are coming from is to help this vision, and you're probably not seeing it from that other side as well, since we're so attached emotionally to what we created.
Yeah, and then to know the type of people to surround yourself with, like, because when you are in a position to tell a certain type of story, sometimes we're so eager to sell. That's why I said, like, I don't take the first sale just because it's a sale, you know, but it's an opportunity to learn more. Anytime you go into a room and pitch, and they're asking questions and they're talking, they're telling you what doesn't work or does work about your pitch. You know, sometimes, you know, I remember, here's a lesson for anybody that pitches. I remember being in the room. Now, when I did BBF, it was a comedy, right? And so when Cedric wants to be on, it's like, this is one of the kings of comedy. The answer is yes. He knows what's funny. And so, but I remember being in a room and I was pitching it, and then they started asking me questions, and I was like, yeah. And then I'm kind of like talking with them. And when we were done and I came out of the room, Cedric said, never do that again. Let them continue to talk. Don't interrupt them. Don't talk with them. I get it. You were excited, but they're telling you what works for the show and what's not working for the show. And they're talking themselves into it or out of it. And they're letting you know what they would do with it by the questions that they ask. So if they're asking questions that are feeling like, oh, you all want to change it like that, you know, and I'm getting too excited because I just want to sell, then that's not the network for me. You know what I mean? And so I think it's also about learning how to listen, what ear to hear it with. Not the ear of, I'm about to get this, but the ear of, is this the right place for the show? Are these the right producers for the show? If you have something that's very, like, for instance, I don't know if I can say the network that the movie is at, but I'm speaking, you know, to women. So I knew exactly where I wanted to go. And I knew that this network was going to embrace things that dealt with women's issues. And if I went somewhere else, they may not give it the same amount of care and the same amount of focus and the certain exec that really, the exec on the movie that really understands it's going to fight for it. Because there's all of this paperwork and red tape that you got to go through to get your work out. And so you got to make sure you're clear who your team is, that they're clear about your vision, that you have people that will protect it, hold you accountable, you know, and then some of the stuff you pick your battles and then you pray for the best and you keep pushing. You keep pushing.
You heard it here first. She's going to be on the Oprah network. she made it to Oprah, y'all. Kudos to Cedric too, man. Like I don't know the dude personally. I just know from his jokes and watching him, but from the sense of him, you know, he seems like a humble dude and someone that you could kick it with and dropping dimes. And for him to take the time to actually do that with you, man, it shows a lot, you know, for people characters, especially in that, you know, in that limelight, in that situation where you see people on TV and now you're next to them. Like I feel like you get messages by their actions and by who they are. And I think that was something that was very thoughtful and great of him to like pull you aside and like drop a little wisdom to you.
Yeah, for sure. And
I mean, like what you're doing right now too, right?
Well, you got to pay it forward, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
beautiful.
I never took a writing class. I didn't do all those things. I just started like writing. I wrote because I needed to find out who I was. And then I would reach out to people that I know, like Lena Waithe and then Kellee Carroll, who runs All American, and different women that look like me that are in the game that are doing it. And I think the thing about this young generation right now is that they are eager to help, to read, to give you notes. You know, you are constantly putting yourself out there to be vulnerable when you want to tell a story, when you want to you got to get used to rejection. You got to get used to somebody having your script for 2 months and still not saying, yo, I read it. And sometimes that's me. Sometimes people give me scripts now and I'm like, oh, damn, I didn't read this thing yet, but you got to get used to being a part of a community where a bunch of people are really, trying to do it. And you can't be shy about asking for help, for resources. It really helps you understand how bad you want it. Do you want it, or do you just kind of want a taste of it? Or do you really want to get something made? You got to put yourself out there. For real.
It's absolutely true. And thank you for sharing that as well, because I can relate to it as well. And even it goes back to this thing. I remember what Kevin Hart was saying, very similar to that line, where he was like, I give all this information. If you come to me and you ask me, I'm going to give you this information, because we'll pay it forward. But then at the end of the day, you have to go after it. I can show you these doors and I can show you all this information, because I'm that type of dude that love to give it away. But if you're hungry and you're going to go after it, that's all on you. If you didn't go after it and you fail, you can't blame anybody else but yourself, because you didn't put in the work in.
100.
So wait, there was another thing I wanted to ask, actually. So you created all your you've been creating all these projects. This passion of yours has took you many different doors and many avenues. What was the most beneficial to you that you felt like you learned the most about yourself? And I think the answer, you kind of shine a light on it, was the writing. But I want to know, I felt like the writing also was something, like you said, like no one taught you. You just was writing. What didn't stop you from not writing that? Like, for instance, it could have been easy for you, like, well, I don't know how to write a script, or I don't know how to write this story. That could have been easily fueled you to just stop writing it. And there's a lot of people out there that maybe have a lot of whys, or why I can't do this, or why I can't do that, and they hold themselves back. What motivated you to push through and to show yourself that you could do it? I think the writing was the most beneficial thing to you.
That's a great question too. I think you have to have, even if it's as small as a mustard seed, you have to have a certain amount of belief in yourself and faith in yourself, and a knowingness that what you have to say has a place in this world to be heard. I think you have to know that somewhere. It may not be all the way matured and at its fullest bloom, but even if it's a seed of that, you have to have it. And then even the way you ask the questions, what made you say, instead of saying, I don't know how to write this thing, I don't know how, you have to surround yourself with people that speak into your life and speak into your listening. And you have to be careful how you speak about yourself. I mentioned in Kellee Carroll, who was an actress. I've known her since New York. She worked on Bones. And like I said, she show runs All American. So she's an executive producer, a writer, and now they have this successful 3rd season of a show. But I remember when I started writing, I would call her to say, I feel like I'm doing this thing, but I'm not a writer. Girl, I don't know what I'm doing. I ain't never taken a class. I'm not a writer. And she'd be like, stop, you're a writer. And I'm like, no, but I'm an actress and I'm just trying to do this thing. She goes, I get it, but you're a writer. And I'm like, no, but I'm not. And she's like, stop saying that. What you say about yourself is going to manifest. If you keep saying I'm not a writer, then a writer you will never be. And it reminded me of my mom, because she bore me. And she used to say those things to me. Be careful what you say about my child. When I would come from an audition and I messed up, I just suck. I don't know what I was doing. She's like, be careful what you say about that's my baby you speaking about. And so you have to be very mindful of the way you speak about yourself and to yourself, and make sure you surround yourself with people that will keep depositing affirmations. Because once I started to say, okay, I'm a writer, I can do this. And even if I only get 4 sentences, 4 lines of dialogue today, I wrote.
Yeah.
So you also have to give yourself credit for the little victories that you take, and writing is about consistency. Producing is about consistent. Art is about being consistent and completely challenging yourself all the time. But I would have to take my, when I would get to 5 or 6 pages, I was like, a bitch got 5 or 6 pages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I had to pour myself a glass of wine and be like, I wrote the shit out of that scene. It might have taken me 3 months to write one scene. But when I wrote it and I read it back and I edited it, and I was like, yes. So then when I got to the end of my first script, I was like, now I do not have an excuse to say that I cannot write a script, because I just wrote Fade Out, which means I can do this. And I credit myself for not giving up. I credit the people around me for holding me accountable, because they would check on you. When you got the right crew of artists around you, how's your script going? You need anything? They'll just send a text from time to time. And if you don't have those people in your life, find them, because we're out here. You know what I mean? That want to see you win for real. And then I started to know that now that I can do this, and now that I know the type of people that I need around me, to do it, now I have to be brave enough to take the risk and to go in a room and pitch it and sell it. And I always start with myself. People, the idea, for instance, of Black Best Friend, of BBF, of flipping the trope. You think you're following the white girl, and then I steal the camera from her, basically, is what happens. But the trope of the Black Best Friend has been around forever, right?
Yeah.
I guarantee you, I am not the first person that walked in the room and tried to pitch a show about let's highlight the Black best friend. I guarantee it. What they bought is my perspective of it. My ideas in it, from living in that neighborhood where my neighbor called me a nigger who lived across the street. They bought me. They bought me as the Black best friend and my experiences. And so what I've learned about putting yourself out there and putting your work out there is what we talked about earlier. Be yourself. Tell your truth and put it in a narrative. And somebody somewhere will say yes. It may not be the first, it may not be the second, but at some point, somebody will say yes. So you just got to do it.
Thank you for dropping so many gems.
So many good gems.
Finger snaps.
Well, it's true, because when I would say I wasn't a writer, and then when I started saying I was, what made me happier than any acting job I ever got is when the WGA sent me that email that said, you have qualified to be a member of the WGA for full membership. When I tell you, I passed all the way the hell out. I have worked with Jane Fonda, Cedric the Entertainer, Bernie Mac, Niecy Nash, all of these great people, Wanda Sykes, you name them. I've been on a set with them. When I never passed out for none of them. But when the WGA said, bitch, you're a member, because that was something I never knew I could do until I just said, I can do this. I'm a writer. And so when that email came, it confirmed, yes, you are. So you'll never hear me say anything like that again. I am whatever I choose to be.
It confirmed what you already knew when you went on that journey to write, and once you felt it, because that could have came at a different moment in your life, but you wouldn't have received it the way it was. You would have received it differently. You know what I'm saying? But it came at the right time where even if you didn't get that email, you still would have felt, well, I'm a member to myself because I've been writing. But it made it that much sweeter once they approved it. It's like, you know what? I wasn't even looking for you, but you just gave me this thing. You stamped approve. Thank you for that, because that is a blessing. And I love
what you just said. I'm a member to myself
Yep.
until I'm.
Yeah, you are.
That right there, that's a gem. I'm a member to myself, like I'm my own writing union first.
Yep. Yeah, that's
my
the
own acting union.
Yeah, that's what it's true. You did
It's
it.
true.
You took control of your career. You took control of your career. You was in your room writing this shit, going through the pain. You was the main person in your life that had to go through all this shit.
Yep.
But you was a member to your own thing. You had your own union. You had your own health benefits. You had you was a member to yourself. Now somebody else came along and noticed it, and you was like, "Oh, thank you for the worldly stamp of approval." But my spirit and myself gave it to me,
because you were like, "I got it," but yo, you said I got it.
Yeah,
that was you just dropped some insane knowledge.
Well, you've been doing it, so thank you for receiving it. You know, you've been dropping a lot on us too.
Yeah.
So we're almost done. We're gonna go to this last segment. It's rapid fire. So it's like 4 questions, and it's whatever comes to your mind. You know, doesn't have to be this big long thing, or there's an amazing thing. It could be one word.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first question for rapid fire is:
what has been your biggest disappointment?
Not having a baby yet.
Okay.
What single thing would improve the quality of your life? And it's not money.
Having a baby.
Okay. That's good. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Going to therapy to heal childhood wounds.
What is the most important lesson life has taught you?
I'm okay, even when I'm not okay. I'm perfectly and divinely lovely, just as I am.